Ron DeSantis says if he were president, Fauci and the medical organizations would face a reckoning. And he said that Trump not only doesn't oppose Fauci, but appointed him. So what's true? Hello there, you 6.5 million Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining me on this voyage to truth and freedom. Turn on the notification bell and subscribe right now. We need your support and your help. I spoke exclusively to Ron DeSantis and I asked him the questions that matter. Would he pardon Donald Trump? Would he have a post-COVID reckoning? Why, in a time when we're turning to outsiders, should we trust Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida? He answers these questions and more. Let me know in the comments in the chat what you think of this conversation. How do you, in your position, knowing that there is no pathway to the presidency via Donald Trump, that this is a phenomena and a fact that you're going to have to deal with, how do you confront his position in the polls? And what would you do about some of the charges that Donald Trump is facing in the event that you were president? And also, how does it personally feel as, you know, like just talking to you for a while, and clearly you and I would see a whole host of issues very differently, but it's pretty clear that you're a pretty potent political voice and figure and orator. How do you deal with the sort of wild card of Donald Trump and what he represents to so many people?
Well, look, this is a campaign that's still very early on. Most people are not paying attention over the summer. They're doing things like be with their families and they're enjoying themselves. So we've been laying the groundworks in the early states. The media will talk about polls, but they'll take a poll from the whole country. That's not how the primary process works. You do Iowa, then New Hampshire, then South Carolina. So we're actually on the ground in those states doing the work that is not always kind of headline grabbing, but it's really grassroots and we're building support. So we're doing a good job. You know, we're going to continue to do more. I think at the end of the day, looking forward, our voters, they want to win. And so we need to beat Biden. I will beat Biden. And then they want somebody that's actually going to be able to deliver on all the things that we care about. And you and I have talked about some of the issues. We also have the border. We also have a whole bunch of other things. And I have a record in Florida. When I tell you I'm going to do something, I do it. I'm not just out there doing idle promises. I know how many people run for office, they overpromise and underdeliver. Well, I think I'm one of the few where I made bold promises, no doubt, but I overdelivered on the promise. And part of the reason I do it is because I'm a former military officer, so I'm disciplined. I don't give the other side a lot of rope to hang me with. I'm not shooting myself in the foot. I'm focusing on the task at hand. I'm focused, I'm disciplined, and it's all about accomplishing the mission. And I think our voters are in a situation where increasingly they're saying, you know, that's what we have to do. Also, the way the United States is with a 2-term limit for president, Trump would be a 1-term lame duck. I could serve 2 terms. So I'm in my 40s. I would go in on day one. I'd be incredibly energetic. I would be very active. You want to talk about the administrative state? We would be able to slay the administrative state. We'd secure the border. We'd do all these things. And it would really be a flurry of activity. So more and more people are going to see that. We haven't even had debates yet. And just keep an eye on those early states because I like what I'm seeing there. It's a little bit different on the ground than some of the stuff that gets put out on some of the national stuff.
How do you manage the tension when there is a plain appetite in your country for anti-establishment figures? RFK becoming an emergent force in the Democrat Party, Trump having been the defining figure in the last 5, 6, 7 years in American politics and American campaigns. How do you deal with managing the tension of being a representative of establishment forces while acknowledging that many people no longer trust the media, many people no longer trust the government, many people are deeply cynical about American institutions? How do you deal with the massive mistrust and near-nihilism of American cultural life? Can we imagine a situation where whatever the result of the next presidential election, the opposing side will likely say the election was stolen, it was because of Russians, it was because of broken or corrupt voting machines? How can you ever bring together and justify a centralized American experiment, particularly when you seem to believe so strongly in decentralization, federalism, and maximum democracy? How do you deal with this mistrust and this great appetite for outsiders?
Well, one, I would push back on this idea that I'm representing establishment forces. I get attacked by the corporate press more than anybody running for office, more than Joe Biden, and now more than Donald Trump, because I think the corporate press views me as a bigger threat. They understand that I will beat Biden, and they know I will actually deliver on all these things, whereas I think they think that Trump would not beat Biden. And then I think they think even if he did, that he would be distracted with all these other stuff and wouldn't be able to deliver. So I've been the target of all these people, and I think it's because I've been willing to lead. Also, I would point out during COVID, I was the one fighting Fauci. Donald Trump put Fauci in charge. He never fired Fauci. In fact, Donald Trump's last day in office, he gave Fauci a presidential commendation. And I'm just thinking to myself, this guy had been responsible for justifying school closures, for justifying mandates, for justifying lockdowns. And by January of 2021, we knew how destructive it was. We knew it had failed. So on the biggest hysterical issue, the biggest current thing where all these elites got together, COVID-19, I was one of the leaders throughout this world to stand against those people, fight back against them. And so I think that the fact that I've been willing to do that, I mean, for example, I've got a grand jury hearing evidence in Florida about misrepresentations by pharmaceutical companies over COVID-19 jabs. There's not another elected official in the country who's been willing to ask those types of questions. You know, we're doing it and we're getting answers for that. So I think I present a great opportunity for people because I have all the right enemies. You see it by how they're attacking me, but I also have a proven record of beating these people, and we would do the same thing as president.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate you answering that question. That's an excellent answer. Now, Ron, I'm sure you're aware that our show is sponsored by Sheath Underwear. You know that already. You don't need me to tell you that, Ron. You've got bigger fish to fry. Two of the most powerful voices in the space that you currently occupy, Governor, have to be regarded as Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson. Both of them have taken strong, overt, explicit anti-war stances, saying, among other things, that the Pentagon can't pass an audit, the money that American taxpayers are funneling into this Ukraine war that increasingly seems like a disaster and a proxy war ought be immediately ended, that a peaceful solution ought immediately be sought. As a former military officer, where do you stand on this conflict, and are you willing to match that kind of anti-war rhetoric? And how do you reconcile the enormous revenue, the vast budgetary and treasury weight that this war and the military-industrial complex places on the American people generally, with the conditions that many former military personnel are enduring, many of them having to use food banks, many of them, like a significant number, ending up homeless? A great stain on American culture, I would say, is the rhetoric that supports veterans and the shameful way in which they are treated. What is your stance on this current conflict, and would you end this war?
So one, on the military-industrial complex, we are actually going to overhaul how these retired generals are allowed to then just go work for defense contractors. As commander-in-chief, you can put restrictions on that. You basically have a revolving door where people go from high military positions into just a handful of major defense contractors. We're also going to democratize the ability of people, because we obviously need to have a strong defense, but we don't want it to go to just a handful of companies. We used to have all these companies like during World War II. So we want to do that for sure. And we absolutely need an accounting to just do a blank check. That doesn't serve the American people. And when I was in Iraq, the thing that I noticed was, and this was 2007, so we were there fighting Al-Anbar province, Al-Qaeda in Iraq. I was attached to Navy SEAL Team 1, and the mission was very murky. Yeah, beat Al-Qaeda, but then create a democracy in the Middle East and Iraq. Well, we weren't able to do that. And so you ended up being there for many years. There was a lot of money spent. There was no clear-cut victory. Same with Afghanistan. And I think what's happening in Ukraine is they're barreling towards a multi-year stalemate where a lot more people are going to die, where you're going to have a lot of treasure that's going to be spent for basically no change in outcome. And so what I've said is we need to focus on achieving a sustainable peace in Europe. We should not want to see this thing go on. We have pressing problems at home that we're neglecting, as you mentioned, our own veterans. We have an open border in the United States of America. We have American families that are losing children to fentanyl overdose by the tens of thousands because we haven't secured our own border. And yet what? We've sent how many hundreds of billions of dollars there? They're not sending that to us. Also, I do think we have threats in this world, such as the Chinese Communist Party. What you've seen is the amount of ammunition and the amount of weapons that have been sent to the Ukraine has actually dwindled our own stocks so that if we were potentially in a major conflict, we would not be able to likely to respond. Now, Donald Trump, had made different comments. The other day, he said he wanted to flood Zelensky with weapons. So I'm not exactly sure, where he is on that. But I think the goal needs to be no blank check and have a sustainable peace in Europe. It doesn't serve our interests to be involved in this thing infinitum.
Join us every day for Stay Free with Russell Brand. If you like this video, have a look at either of these. Turn on the notification bell and subscribe. More important than any of that is that you please, if you can, stay free.